Hey guys, it's C from toptwopercentdotnet, and today we're going to take a look at Muta Ling into the late game. So right off the bat, we're on Shattered Temple, and I'm going for a quick pool build on an 11, and my opponent will be going for a fairly fast expand. I'm doing my pool build so I can harass a probe or pylon or get something out of the way if he tries to block my expansion. You want your first overlord to go, of course, right over here, and if you can pull it back in time, pull it back so they don't scout it and don't know where you are, but if you don't, it's not a big deal, and you can just stick it up here, and they won't be able to hit it because technically this is high ground. This works for all 4 spawn positions, of course. So, I'm gonna move my second overlord over here to look for anything at all out of the ordinary, but mainly just to see where the probe is. And he'll be chronoing probes, getting his gateway to do a little bit stranger of an expansion, but we'll get more on that later. It doesn't affect very much of how this build works at all, so don't stress it too much. A lot of people like to do Muta Ling versus Protoss, and me being one of them, I love the build, but a lot of people will have trouble when it gets to later mid-game or just straight late game, where Protoss just pushes out and will outright kill them. If Protoss engages late game versus Muta Ling, they will win outright 1000% of the time, something like that. It's just kind of how it works. So you need to be able to switch your units out and sort of go about things in that manner. I like to go into Ultralists as opposed to Broodlords, but we'll take a look at that when we get to it. So right off the bat and get my gas up nice and quick. First thing I'll be getting with it is going to be Ling speed, but I'm not in a huge rush for it because I'm not going to put on any aggression or anything. And my opponent's opted not to block my expansion, which I think is a bit of a mistake. I really recommend blocking that. So he's going for a bit of a strange expand. I'm only going to touch lightly on this because it's not important at all. There's a lot you can do against this, but don't do anything against it. It's kind of a trap, to be honest. It looks like you want to break it, and he's got pylons and stuff everywhere, and it's just this haggard-looking wall. But realistically, by the time you get the speed finished and all your lings and stuff out, he'll have sentries or zealots, he'll have enough to hold it, and it's just going to turn out that you've spent a ton of minerals on things that aren't drones, and he kept making probes. I know White Raw has mentioned in some interview that sometimes he doesn't wall versus Zerg, because if they try and punish it, by the time they get to his base, he'll have enough to deal with it, and that'll just mean that Zerg hasn't made drones. So, you can see stuff like this, but I don't recommend going for it. I mean, maybe I could have thrown down like a Roach Warren and kind of done something crazy, but it's not worth risking a perfectly legit game. By him doing this, he shows he wants to go for a longer game, and that's where I'm comfortable, so I'm ready to take him to that. I'm making 8 lings here because I want to see if maybe I can get in. I still think that's a little bit of a mistake, but not entirely, just because of the map. On other maps where you might find an expansion you want to sneak by, don't bother making lings, except for this and like Antigua, or anything with destructible rocks. Because if I can't get through here, I've got things to keep my lings useful, to make them pay for themselves. I've got his rocks to work down, my gold to work down, my rocks to work down. I've got plenty, so they're going to be effective, even if they do nothing. Or worst case scenario, if he's going for an aggression like a zealot sentry push, I have units ready for it. Because at this point, by scouting his front, I don't really know what I'm up against, and that's all Zerg has until lair attack is poking at the front. So it's always decent to have a few extra lings around, but don't get too carried away. Here I try and go for the engage, and as you see, not worth it. No reason at all. Lost a few lings, like it wasn't the worst engage, but now I sort of see that he's getting his expansion up at least. So I got a bit of information from that. Fair trade, fine by me. Right immediately, move right to his rocks. Just start working that down. I'm not heading for this amazing counterattack through here because it'll take lings too long to get through, so don't get carried up in it. But sooner or later, I want to get into here to bother his third, so why not do it right now instead of being idle. I could have grabbed a few lings from here to move down, but it's not that big a deal. Getting my evolution chamber up here. Gonna start a variant of +1. I like Carapace first, and I like melee first, depending on... It all depends on situation. It's really awkward. I'm getting a bit more into Carapace first, so the lings take more hits while the mutas do damage. but it's not as big a difference as it would be versus Terran, where you want Carapace first usually to take the tank fire. So I'm going to go with melee first, because I see he's got heavy sentries, and if I can get in on that, I can kill them even quicker, because first Carapace doesn't really change that much. So I got my lair going, and I've got my second gases just taken, a little bit later than they should be, but I'm pretty in the dark, so I'm playing about as safe as I can. I'm droning pretty consistently and working on my next rocks, and so from here I have no idea what's coming. Just some form of timing attack. That's pretty much it. You know, he's got his Stargate going here, but I have no idea. My lair has just finished, and immediately I'm getting an Overseer because I need to know what the hell is going on, and I get my Spire blindly. Now, if you scout Stargate and they're going heavy Stargate, you can cancel your Spire and go into Hydra, or you can fight air versus air. That's kind of up to you and what you're more comfortable with. And I've broken through the rocks here, so I'm going to move over and just take a peek around. I had my Overlord here, but I'm going to move it over a bit in case they start to break through. It's just a safer position for it. So, just droning, and, you know, almost ready to take my third. As soon as I can, I'm going to get on it, but it takes a little while. He hasn't really done anything, so I'm getting a Spore Crawler because, you know, he could have DTs even though he's got sentries, so this timing might sync up with it, or it could be a lot of air. And as I scout in here, I see, yep, it's a Void Ray. Around here, he engaged me, but I always run it away from my base, not only to get into his to scout, but it drags their Void Ray, you know, just a few feet away from my base. And you know what, that might be the difference between life and death, so, you know, just do everything you can to buy yourself time, because Void Rays are a huge pain in the ass. Now, I don't go crazy on the Spore Crawlers because I already have my Spire going, so I'm just going to counter it with Muta. It could either be a heavy Spire play, but because it's Void Ray first, it's probably going to be like Void Ray into Phoenix just for map control, which in this case is going to do pretty much nothing. I'm going to keep my upgrades going even though it cuts down on my Muta count, and if you're doing any Ling-centric build, it's great to have a macro hatch. You absolutely need them. By Ling-centric, I mean either Muta Ling or Infestor Ling. A good time to start your macro hatch is about halfway through the layer. I got mine a little bit later. It could have came earlier, but either way. So he cancels my expansion. That's about all the damage this Void Ray does. And my mutas pop out. So I've got my Ling's working on my gold rocks. He wants to come bother that. I think, you know what, let's just go kill it. So yeah, he canceled my hatch, but that's about it. Get a little carried away here. Finally worked on the Void Ray. Then I switched target to the Phoenix because if he starts to micro the Phoenix, he'll get too much damage in. Or if he gets the Phoenix away, he might group and Chrono Phoenix. I do not want to deal with them. If they keep making Phoenix, you have to make tons of Zerglings because their stalker count will be low. But that'll be for another video. So at this point, he just makes another Phoenix. He doesn't really know where he's going to go with this. And I'm working on my Infestation Pit here because I want to keep the upgrades going. I want to head it into Hive Tech. It's not a specific timing really, but Hive and Infestation Pit take a long time to make, so you kind of want to get them earlier rather than later. The biggest goal of the Infestation Pit and Hive is not just for the upgrades, but you want to immediately and ultimately get into Ultras, because the sooner you have that tech available, the safer you are. There's awkward timings that you might want to fight with, you'd rather have Ultras, so we'll take a look at that when the time comes. Some harassing, keeping him in his base, this guy's Phoenix to try and ward it off, but, you know, not really doing very much. You know, if you double back when they're moving, you can get extra shots, but don't get chased by them because they shoot while moving. My Ling count's kind of low. My drone count is about expected, and I'm taking this, but I have extra money, so I'm definitely going to take my gold as well. And I know that he hasn't, you know, his sort of something he wanted to do more damage with, like the Stargate, didn't do as much. So the chance of him pushing out soon is there, but it's lower. It's not as effective as it would have been. His Kronos is forged. An awkward timing on that, and he finally decides to take his third. A little bit late, I would say, but whatever. Keep your mutas moving. You can keep your Lings moving. You probably should just go scout around for pylons or something. But I've got pretty good map control here. I'm not too worried. My creep spread could definitely be better, but I did drone up quite heavily in the last little bit. After that engagement with the Void Rays, I figure it's about 3 minutes or so until the next sort of pressure comes. So you can drone. Just keep in here, keep poking, you know, unpower some stuff, just do what Protoss like to do. He's getting Blink to react, and he's working on 2 forges, which is an absolute pain to deal with with Zerg. And I see, because I've been in his base so much, if he moves out, I'm gonna know about it. Because I keep harassing. That's your scouting, is your mutas. So he's turned, I've got the watchtower ready, and you know, it's not that much, but his upgrades are 1-1, he's got Guardian Shield, so it's something to be wary of. Got Lings in production, I got my carapace going as well, and he's pressuring while he's expanding. So with all these sentries, if I can snipe 1 or 2, I would like to, because they have so much energy. But don't take a really bad trade, we can't do that just yet. So I swoop in, when I go for the engage after getting only 1 sentry, he's got tons of force field save. You know what, this engage is garbage, leave. Look at that, now he's stuck in his force fields. A lot of people will just run their Lings and stuff in, and it doesn't make any sense. Because, oh look, force fields are gone, great, I'm gonna go swoop in and clean you up now. More efficient engagement means less on your side of units lost, it's just a lot better. You don't have to take engages, you need a Ling, be everywhere, take whatever you want. So off of that, that's another engagement, or encounter, or whatever you want to call it. He can attack for a little while, I can't really attack for a little while, made 8 drones there, and you know, he's working on getting that 3rd up and running. I'm working on gonna get my gold up and running, keep this, a little more drones here, and he's teching off that to get his Templar archives, because that's what you do versus Ling. And so far he's handled it pretty well. We're a little bit stir crazy on the cannons. I don't really like people that do a ton of cannons. You'd rather just leave stalkers or something there. But it has stopped me from hitting his probe line, so I guess it's worked. I'm working on getting +2 for air, and my Ultralisk Cavern. The goal of this is to get pretty much 100% Ultralisk, because all your shit will die ASAP if you fight him head on in sort of a later game situation. But I'm still getting my air attack, because just because I'm going to get into Ultralisk does not mean I'm never going to get into Muta again. You know what happens if I clean up but there's zealots everywhere and all my Ultras are dead? You want to make sure everything is on terms with his upgrades as well. I'm getting attack 3 because it shares with Lings and Ultralisks, and soon or later I get Adrenal Glands. It's this is kind of iffy, because this is around the time where he's going to start getting Archons out, and you don't know what he's going to push with. So you want to have enough to deal with, but not be out of gas for the Ultras. It's really, this is the ugliest part of Muta Ling. He's got 3 Archons in production, and you know, they've got some decent upgrades working. He's 2-2 already, and he's working 3-3. So I'm going to stay active here, but at this point I can afford sort of a worse trade. Here I probably could have Magic Box those, but I don't know what's coming up that ramp, and he's got Blink, so if I make one mistake I lose too many at once. But we are going to lose our Mutas, and we are going to lose our Lings. That's how this has to work. Now around the time you see the first few Archons, and even early game if you're worried about like a 6-gate, don't be afraid to make a ton of spines. You know, I had 90 some drones, and now I'm down to 77, oh no. I've got this covering my mains ramp, here, here, and here. So it all sort of coagulates into this big mash of spine crawlers. You know, I'm going to move back in his base, take out cannon, I see, oh my god, let's kill this. Now, I did not know that I was this close on his storm. And all the while this is happening, like, yeah, I'm taking maybe a hit from an Archon or a hit from a cannon, but I'm remaxing it with Ultralisk as best I can. I always assume that my opponent is, like, perfect, so I think that Storm is done. I just assume. I don't care if it is, I don't care if it isn't. I'm not basing a strategy on, oh, maybe he won't have Storm. That's absolutely ridiculous. So at this point, we've got to keep hitting stuff, get my Lings in there. I'm taking hits, I'm losing supply, I'm making Ultras, getting my Adrenals, because sooner or later, after the engage, I'm going to have to remax with something. An Ultralisk take, even though it's only like 55 seconds an hour or so, I'd rather punish a lot quicker, and Lings are just perfect at doing stuff like that. All the while, he hasn't had a DT shrine, so his Archon production has been halted, and he finally finishes his archives again. Snag a few probes here. I've got gas is just so important in here. Like, get your gas as early as possible if you know you're going into Ultra, which you should know. You know, here I'm just going to hoard these up. I'm sure he's probably seen it with an observer, but I don't care. Like, it doesn't matter. What are you going to do about it? I got Ultralisk. Come at me. Keep your injects up. Make sure your macro hatch stays always making larva. Even if you think you're ahead, which in this case I guess I am. I've got a lot of money ready, but a bad engage could change that. Just keep getting more stuff. Make sure you never risk falling behind. He's 3-3 now, and 3-3 Archons and Stalkers and stuff can be just so cost efficient. Here I snipe a few Templar. When you're going to lose more of your Muta, you want to lose it trading it for Templar or trading it for anything expensive and gaseous. you know, it's fine losing these. They are terrible in a straight fight, and this amount of lings, even I could lose a few more, but I don't want to because Engage is here. If I engaged full Muta Ling versus these Archons, would be enough to clean the whole thing up as far as I'm concerned. So I take the Engage, you gotta move your Ultras a little bit around because the AI is absolutely atrocious. So I'm getting about as big surface area as I can, and even still, he's really doing some damage to me, and this Engage ends up being pretty close to even. Not entirely, but close. Could have made another Archon or two there. That's how it goes. So I'm still getting some damage in. Zealots are pretty great against Ultras in a way because the AI isn't that good versus them. The splash damage doesn't hit perfectly. When you have Ultras, you need to have a ton of Ultras. You can't just have a few. The best point about Ultras with Muta Ling is if they're still sentry heavy, your Ultras are going to break force fields. So if you're engaging versus a sentry heavy army, just send the Ultras in first, make sure they clear everything, then your Lings are going to get full damage. A remax on 72 Lings, because what's he going to warp in? It's got to be Zealots or Stalkers, and really upgraded Lings are going to be alright versus that. My carapace is a bit late, but he went Stalker, so it's okay. Right around here, I just want to keep his unit count low. I wanted to get my Ultras in on it, but the AI is ridiculous and insisted on going all the way around instead of just attacking stuff, so make sure you're careful about that. I should know that by now, but I messed up. After that last engagement, just because my focus is on his army, he expanded. I don't know if he knew that I would just try and kill him and he expanded, but he did. I didn't get to it for a little bit, but it doesn't save him or anything. Keep your injects going, you know, take another base. I could have this by now. I could probably take his gold and he couldn't do anything. You know, he's still really working on it because Stalkers do a lot of damage at full upgrades. So if he ends up doing a little bit more damage, and I would like him to. And I think earlier on even I transfuse an Ultralist back to health. They do things like that. And my Queen energy is getting higher. It's getting to the point where I should be a little bit embarrassed. But spend it on stuff. Make creep tumors. Make, you know, transfuses on absolutely all of your expensive units. Just make sure you're doing everything as efficient as possible. Because Protoss have shady ways of coming back and doing strange things. Like if he pulled out, I don't know, like maybe he was maxing Void Rays in the back off like 3 Stargate. You know, I would be in an awkward position. I would have Aspire to deal versus that, but you know, a blind Hydrogen is never that bad just because they're cheap. So here, I mean, the game is admittedly pretty much over, but it's not completely over until they don't GG and F10 end. So you know, he's got a lot of cannons. He's ready to hold. Like he's not giving up. Stuff like that's kind of a bother. But this is kind of how you want to engage versus it. Again, micro your Ultras, because they'll just try and prioritize buildings over everything. It's at the point where they just do so much damage, it doesn't matter. Even so, you know, it looks like I'm crushing him, still gotta expand, and he gets upset to Ultras. The biggest thing you gotta worry about with this build is Ultralisk AI. Be careful, really mind your Ultras, they're expensive as all hell, and make sure they're actually hitting something instead of just spinning in a circle, because Ultras really like to do that. That's pretty much it for Muta Ling into Ultra. Muta Ling will not be able to engage versus Archon or versus anything Zealot heavy, so make sure you're ready for a switch. If you feel like they're going to be attacking before Ultras, you can get a Roach Horn and sort of buffer with that, but remember, your Roaches are going to have no attack upgrades and your Lings might have 2 or 3, so it's a little bit iffy. If you see they're going Robo, Muta Ling pretty much just beats Robo outright. A lot of people go blind Robo, and you can just kind of crunch it really easily. Ultralisk is your saving grace. I don't recommend Broodlord. I think that because Ultras share upgrade with Ling, I mean obviously yeah, but they're going to be a lot more effective with that. Ultras break force field if you have to remax with Lings. And if you're doing Broodlord, you kind of need Infestors to back up. So you've sort of just gone from like a Muta Ling section of a build to like an Infestorling or an Infestor Roach or something, and it just seems like a bit too big of a transition, and there's a lot of gas spent and a lot of downtime between getting your other tech. I mean, if you can do it, great, but I think Ult is probably the better choice for this matchup. Anyways, that's how I like to play my Muta Ling vs Protoss and carry it into the late game. Thanks for watching, guys. Cheers.